Hey, what's up guys, Ara here, and welcome back to a brand new video here today, and F1 2021 is here. Well, not quite here, obviously we still got 2 years to go, we've still got the 2019 season to finish, but the rules and the look of F1 2020 has been finally officially unveiled by the FIA and F1. So in a press release and press conference today in Austin, Texas, ahead of the USA Grand Prix in 2019, the 2021 concept has been officially unveiled. We've had many concepts before, they've been fine-tuned, and this is the kind of final one the FIA and F1 are going to put out here to say this is what we're looking forward to for 2021, and I must say they look exquisite. They look really, really mean. They almost look like a hybrid of 90s cars, but then taking like the technology and the kind of styling and the aero you've had from previous years, you know, years gone by just now recently, and splicing them two together. And you can see straight away the big things they've done to try and reduce the dirty air, the wake of these cars, which is the biggest kind of goal for the 2021 regulation rules, is to try and make the racing not necessarily any faster, but just a lot closer. Try and bring the fuel spread a lot smaller from the top teams right to the bottom, and interesting things like a budget cap as well. So on screen right now, some screenshots and some stills of the F1 2021 cars in the kind of, you know, concept pictures, if you will, that F1 have released. Let me know what you guys think of them in the comments below. We've got that very different style of front wing, then the entire side pod area has been reduced, really morphed in a different way. You've got a lot more going underneath the car in terms of ground effect and tunnels underneath the car to try and encourage aero underneath rather than on top, which is always the kind of mega reason why we have issues with dirty air right now with the cars we have, is the massive amount of wake that comes off the rear end of these cars, and also the amount of aero that's on top of these and at the front of these cars is so important that the wake that gets produced from the back of the car that car's following is just too much for the car that's trying to chase down. That's why cars can't follow as close as we'd like to. And obviously then you've got the big rear wing that's been changed and heightened in a little way. F1 released a really handy everything we need to know about F1 2021 video. It's about 5 minutes long. I thought we'd watch along and kind of react to it and kind of pause it at certain points to kind of talk about it. If you guys maybe don't understand a certain thing, maybe we can try and kind of delve into it and see why they're maybe doing certain things or try and elaborate on things. And there might be some info that you might have not heard and I might have heard as well. So let's click play and get into it. I think we start off with a very bougie intro, if you will, from F1. Very Avengers style intro.
Formula One is changing. 2021 will see one of the biggest set of rule changes in the sport's history.
This is like an Avengers trailer. This is so much like an event. This is the music, the like humming, the kind of, you know, slow build up. They've definitely got the cinematics on board. I'll give them that for the media stuff. But look at this car already. Like just from these like very they're not high end renders, but already I'm getting excited for this car. It looks so mean.
No mean feat given how many times the sport has changed and adapted since its inaugural season back in 1950. The changes are all designed to create closer, fairer, and more exciting racing.
No, they didn't say faster. They're not saying faster because it won't be faster, but apparently they've actually been doing simulations, and the kind of ones that have been coming out as of recently have said that the 2021 cars might not actually be the massive, you know, the shock like 6 seconds or more, or, you know, close to that kind of slower than the current cars we have. There's kind of been some scaremongering about the cars being that slower. I personally don't think they will be even that slower. Maybe potentially we're looking at, I don't know, 3 seconds, but I mean, the way F1 teams develop, remember how we talked about F1 2019. We said that 2019, the cars were going to be so much slower than 2018. And what happened? We got to about, you know, this time last year and into winter testing, and over the winter period before testing even started, and you had teams like Red Bull saying, oh yeah, no, we've got all the downforce back basically, so we're going to be at the same level we ended last year off. So don't count out clever F1 teams, clever F1 engineers bringing downforce out of nowhere. Of course, the cars, the images we've seen so far from F1, though those are just kind of, you know, basic renders. Obviously, the teams have an actual set of regulations they'll build a car to, so it doesn't mean they're going to actually look exactly like that. There will be teams, I'm sure, that innovate and try new things, and we might see some pretty crazy designs in the bid to try and get back some performance, basically. And you know, that's what an engineer's job is, basically, to look at the regulations and look for loopholes. Hopefully, there aren't too many loopholes that the big teams will exploit, because obviously that's what we want, is a closer field spread and better racing where cars can follow, and that's why we've got these rules. Yeah, we want to see more stuff like that. We want to see more stuff like that. Toro Rosso's getting on the podium. Whoops. Toro Rosso's getting on the podium. Midfield teams, the real massive big storylines of, the underdogs winning through, even winning races. That would be insane. I don't think we'll probably get to that straight away at 21, but that's what the aim is. And here we go. Now, better looking cars as well. In my opinion, they look really sweet. I mean, I like the look of the cars now, to be fair, in 2019. I really do like the look of the cars in F1 2019 as well. I think drivers also are the same way. I think Carlos Sainz already said in an interview that he really likes the 2019 looking cars, and probably the 2021 ones, in his opinion, won't look as good. In my opinion, I think they're very different. They're very different styles of cars, so I wouldn't really compare them like for like, essentially, because I know also you've got to take into account how much better maybe hopefully the racing will be with these 2021 cars. So I can take maybe it looking a little bit less aggressive and maybe, I don't know, dimensional, I guess, in terms of 2019. It does look a little bit dimensionally weird at certain angles, I will admit, but overall, they do look pretty sweet.
F1 cars will have a radical new design philosophy.
Look at that render.
Striking new look, with sweeping bodywork and larger tyres with 18-inch rims.
Love those side pods. Love just this swooping nature of that entire middle section. You've got the underneath tunnels over here. You can see on my mouse there. Those are actually kind of tunnels that actually act underneath rather than above. At first, when I saw the pictures, I thought they're kind of like normal barge boards, but you can see there's a bit of a covering on top, so it kind of creates a channel tunnel that forces air underneath the car, and you have to do a lot more work underneath, which is good. Obviously, the more air that's working underneath and aero that's working underneath, the less there is on top, and the less chance it's going to get kind of affected by wake of the car from the rear end. And obviously, at the same time, therefore, I've tried to make regulations where the front wing itself is simpler, and the rear wing as well is going to create less wake. And if it does create just as much wake potentially, it's going to be chucking the air more upwards rather than kind of straight flat on, basically. And the air, in terms of the way it goes around the car, is more kind of, just trying to chuck it outward more than kind of inwards, basically, to where the car would be following along when you're kind of following a car in the middle of the corner in the apex, essentially.
And race more closely without losing downforce.
That's the shot. That's the money shot. Wait, hang on. Let me take this webcam off. That is the money shot right there. That is a beautiful little picture. To be fair, all of these are very nice renders. We've got it at COTA, of course, because they did the press release at the USA GP, but it just looks pretty damn tasty. Looks a bit of me. Looks nice. Looks nice. So I'm not going to play the audio here because it's basically the same thing I'm going to be talking about. But essentially, this is exactly why, and what I've just been explaining about why they want to make these cars the way they are and what they're hoping for in terms of trying to change this wake and keep them a little bit cleaner. So the car apparently has a loss of downforce now of 10% compared to what it was before of 40 to 50. So they're trying to reduce that. It's a massive, massive reduction. If they actually do it, that's another thing. But what they're aiming for is a pretty mad amount of cleaning up of their air, basically, to allow cars to follow one another. So in terms of things that have changed, we've got the new front wing, of course. You can see the nose now connects directly onto the main flaps of the front wing, and you've got more simplified actual, no cascade elements anymore potentially, and you've got a lot more simplified on the end plates as well. You've got simplified suspension arms, because right now F1 teams love to play around with suspension and use them as aerodynamic parts, and you've actually got this nice flick-on bit as well above the tyre, and that's going to try and keep some air kind of cottoned on and try and flick it around outside of the car, essentially trying to stop it from going inwards, and that's also at the same time in a bid to try and keep this kind of whole pattern of air going outwards rather than inwards, kind of affecting the car behind this car that we're driving. New rear end layout, we've got a massive diffuser and kind of tunnel effect going on here with a kind of double effect as well. And obviously you've got to remember those near the barge board area where those three tunnels chucking air through as well. So that all kind of interconnect. And then this new rear wing, I'm assuming the way they shaped it is a lot higher and actually a lot more kind of swooping upwards in terms of the curve from the kind of the actual where it connects to the actual body of the engine cover. Swoops a lot more, again, trying to shut air upwards and just around up the top of the car, following, again, trying to make the car and racing closer. And then here we go, those underneath channels, really, really cool. And you can see exactly what they're going for. So any air that's going underneath, they'll directly get affected to these channels. And so ground effect me up, baby. And we've also got 18-inch rims, so bigger rims. We've seen Pirelli test these before. I'm not sure about how I feel about 18-inch rims. I think they look good on these cars, to be fair. They look a bit odd on the 2019 cars, but I don't think they're really matched for them as well as this car is. So let me know what you guys think about that. And it looks like, well, from the renders we've seen, it seems like they're going to be covered 18-inch rims. So no longer longer. It will kind of go back to what it was in 2009, where we had the covered rims, and you can actually see the actual wheel housing itself in it, basically. So you've got covered rims there. And so this is the very interesting part. Details like these, we didn't really know fully until now, until they've kind of explained this video. So let's actually listen to it, and let's see what it's about.
There are other big changes to the technical and sporting regulations too. Car upgrades over race weekends will be limited, reducing an arms race in preparation for a Grand Prix.
Very good. Right, so that's pretty sick. Limited upgrades, so that kind of, again, is trying to bottleneck the top teams that are more likely to bring loads of upgrades. So again, trying as best to kind of bottleneck the top teams without actually forcing a spec series on them. They can still upgrade, but the rate of their upgrades will be a little bit less, and so it allows the smaller teams to try and catch up, because of course the smaller teams have less engineers back at the factory, less staff, less resources, less money as well, which we'll get into obviously in a little bit with the budget cap as well.
There will also be the introduction of certain standardized parts and increased restrictions on the number of times some components, like brake pads, can be replaced.
Again, reducing costs as well for that in terms of standardized parts means every team basically just gets the same, and so it's just going to reduce all the costs and level the playing field as well, because there might be a certain thing where potentially maybe a team got a bit of advantage with a certain part. If that's standardized now, it's going to be the same for everyone now as well.
These changes aren't about making the cars faster, but reducing the gap between the front and back of the grid.
And making it all closer.
Closer and more sustainable.
Yes, yes, yes.
And the most efficient power units on the planet that have made significant contributions to hybrid technology around the world will remain unchanged.
So the engine's going to be unchanged at all, so hopefully that means actually a good thing of teams like Honda and Renault potentially closing up even more so, potentially, because in a way, stability does allow teams to close up. Obviously, regulation changes have the ability to maybe shake things up, but actually in reality, if you look at it, stability also is another thing that can actually allow midfield teams to kind of close up to the top teams. And when it comes to engine development, for sure, that's going to just allow Honda and Renault more time to develop. Obviously, there's rumors now Renault might even pull out for 2021. We'll have to see about that, but Honda for sure can try and close up then, and Ferrari and Merc obviously will kind of level out. You have that kind of diminishing returns effect almost, hopefully, with these engines after, now being there since 2014 now. So a good, 5-6 years by the time 6-7 years by the time we get to 2021. There we go.
Formula One will introduce
cost cap.
A cost cap will be set at $175 million per team per year and applies to anything that covers on-track performance, but excludes marketing costs, the salaries of drivers, and the top 3 personnel at any team. The top 3.
Interesting. Right, so 175 million cost cap, which is still quite high. Jean Todt did admit that in the press conference, and teams like the midfield teams don't probably even spend that much on the car. So at the moment, it probably won't affect things as much as we'd all like to, but it is a good precedent being set that this cost cap will probably only get smaller and smaller as we go on over the years. I think at the start here to allow teams like Merc, Red Bull and Ferrari to agree to it, they had to set a cost cap around here, and they have agreed to it. Ferrari is the only team that has a say on the Motorsport Council, and the Motorsport Council all unanimously agreed all of these rules. So Ferrari did say yes to this, so it is going to go through. So it's a good foundation, and hopefully in future years we try and keep on reducing this cost cap basically to make sure that it goes down and down and down, trying to not only reduce the cost of the sport itself, but also try and make it more level playing field for the midfield teams, like I said, the smaller teams that probably won't even spend this much. And then that was interesting as well. The unlimited amount of money won't affect things like the top 3 teams in personnel, and obviously all the marketing stuff. So, obviously, like teams Ferrari, Red Bull, Merc, they're going to obviously chuck so much at marketing, but that doesn't affect the actual racing itself. So that's a really good thing. And so I like the sound of that. Like I said, it's not exactly where we want it to be, but I think it's a really good first step in the right direction.
Has been written into the official regulations, and an independent regulator appointed to oversee team compliance.
Okay.
Potential penalties, both financial and sporting, could be applied in the event of any failure to comply with the new rules.
Solid. So there's going to be actual hard and fast, clampdowns if they do overspend, and there'll be an independent person looking at it, or a company rather, looking at it basically. So it's not even going to be in F1 itself. So again, that hopefully stops any politics as well in terms of like lattering along, any kind of behind the deal, kind of shaking hands kind of thing. It's all done independently, and it's just going to be kind of like a swift, cut off if you do overspend. Obviously, I don't think think really any team will overspend because, I mean, like they said, if you're going to be investigated, there's no point in even trying to cheat.
There will be significant changes to the race weekend structure.
Okay.
To be condensed.
Right.
In order to improve the fan experience and help teams deal.
We talked about this on the podcast for sure.
The pre-race press conference will now be held on Friday, ahead of the first and second practice sessions. And all teams must run at least 2 sessions during the year using drivers who've completed 2 Grand Prix or fewer.
All right, that's pretty sick. So Thursday won't really be a thing anymore. They're trying to reduce that, and they're actually trialing that this weekend of USA Grand Prix to kind of see how it goes, basically. But moving things a bit more condensely, so it's not spread out so much. Hopefully, we talked about, in the future, getting to the point where they're scrapping maybe practice sessions, because we just don't need as many. And we've seen so many times in the past, when F1 teams have less info from practice, the better races they are. When they're basically headless chickens, you get great races. So the less practice sessions, the better. And also this way as well, forcing them to do this whole thing of having to have drivers with 2 less Grand Prix experiences or less, it just means, one, obviously they're trying to get new talent into the sport, trying to show off their new talent, and also at the same time, it also maybe just kind of also stops that whole, you don't get as much information, because obviously the driver that you put in there won't be as experienced, maybe won't know exactly what he's looking for, basically, so you get a little bit less info like that in that practice session when you have to do that young driver. There we have it, F1 2021. That's a pretty sweet video, really well made video there by F1, and really cool. Looks all really, really good. Looking forward to 2021. Looking forward to seeing more of these kind of cars, like in terms of, when we get to the end of 2020 and you start seeing, potential concepts of the rules, you have like analysts doing, potentially what teams might be doing. It's going to be real, real sweet. But for what we've seen right now, I'm very, very excited. But let me know what you guys are thinking in the comments below. Obviously, there might be some of you who do disagree with it and don't like the look. And if you do just go off in the comments and let's have a bit of discussion in the comments. But if you did enjoy the video, guys, then be sure to hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Like I said, if you're new around here, subscribe for weekly full-on content. I've been Arva. Hope you just there. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.